I'm pretty good when it comes to tools. I'm not so good when it comes to gardening. So I thought, well, maybe I just need better tools. So thanks to the Home Depot Seeds program, we're looking at the AMES 4-piece gardening set. You get grass shears, a pair of snips, Anvil Pruner, and a bypass pruner. Let's see how all 4 of these work. We'll start off with the bypass shears, and they're called bypass because this blade and this blade bypass each other, and thus doing a nice clean cut. This is for materials that are woody but that are live and not brown or dead for a while, and this lets you make a nice clean cut without crushing the material, which is what you want for something like this so that it properly heals. By the way, each of these tools has a lock that you can engage so that the blade is safely tucked away. Now we come to the Anvil Pruner, and the reason for that name is this is an anvil. It's not a cutting edge. There's only one cutting edge on this tool, and it goes right up against the anvil, thus doing a compression cut. So you wouldn't use that for this because it tends to crush the plant material. Instead, you'd have something like this, some older dead wood that you're just looking to get rid of. And when you do your cut, and this one's actually fairly clean. There's a little bit of crushing that goes on, but the blade's really sharp, so it does a very nice clean cut. And this can go up to 3/4 of an inch. So let's do this really thick part of this branch. And it doesn't take all that much effort to give you a nice clean cut. So on this bush, we have some old dead wood. So that, of course, gets not the bypass pruner, but the Anvil Pruner. Whereas this newer growth would get the bypass pruner because it makes a nice clean cut. The Anvil Pruner tends to make more of a crushing cut. Does that mean that you can't use your Anvil Pruner on the greenwood? Well, yeah, you can. It'll do the cut, but it'll tend to crush that. And what if I use my bypass pruner on the old dried up wood? It'll also make the cut, although it's a little bit harder because the anvil is the better tool for that. But yeah, you could, in a pinch, interchange them. This piece of wood is a little bit over 3/4 of an inch, and our anvil could not cut through it. But it didn't have issues with anything that was less than 3/4 of an inch. These are the grass shears. They unlock by pulling that button up, and the blade opens up. And this is like the bypass. There are 2 blades that are sharp. You bring it down to something you want to trim, a grass or some kind of thin plant, and you can trim back an area. Now obviously you wouldn't do your whole lawn like this because there are better powered tools for that, but if you have a small area, you can just manicure. Maybe you're going around a post, but as you see, it's pretty sharp. My only gripe about it is I wish the handle was 90 degrees this way. So you're squeezing this way and the blade's doing this. I find this a little awkward because it actually puts my hand into the vegetation. I see that as a bit of a nuisance. This kit did not come with instruction sheets. So remember earlier when I said that I wish this handle was at 90 degrees? Well, if you look there, you'll see a little black dot, and that's a spring. And if you grab the blade and the handle and you twist, you can actually change the angle of the handle to the blade So now you can make your cut without getting your hand into the vegetation. And by closing the blade, which makes it safer and holding onto it, you can go 90 degrees the other way. So you can go from parallel to the handle to perpendicular to the handle to parallel on the other side. This is a pair of snips. You unlock it, it opens up. Like the bypass, it has 2 sharp blades, and this is for very precise, delicate work. So, for example, we have this bad leaf here on this plant, so we don't need a big tool, we just need a small tool to come in here and trim that off. And if you look, it's a very nice, clean cut, so minimal damage to the plant. So that's your snip. Very precise, small cuts, especially when you're trying to get into a place. Oh look, someone's been eating our tomatoes. And what you want to do, if you're, let's say you're cutting this tomato and you go to a different plant, you may want to wipe these down with alcohol in between. That way, if there's some kind of a fungus or illness with the plant, you're not transferring it to your next plant. After a few hours, we're calling it because of rain, but a couple of things I've learned. I like the tools, they're very sharp, which one would expect since they're brand new. One thing I don't like is the spring, because at least on the small snip, it could inadvertently get popped out, and if it falls out in the garden, then you're never going to find it again. You have less of a chance with the bigger springs, which seem to be embedded into the handle, so that's nice. I like the fact that on the grass shear you can pivot the handle. Don't come with instructions, which I think is sad, because not everybody knows how to use these, and some helpful hints on how to properly utilize the tools would have been helpful. Instructions would have come in handy for explaining what these jaws are for, or that round opening. Maybe it's for dethorning roses? We don't know. The case is nice. It's, these are going to go into a tool drawer, and they're not going to be in the case. So for us, the case is just a waste. I think for most people, a better thing would have been like a garden apron, which could store the tools and that you could wear while you're out there, so you can keep track of the tools. None of the handles come with the ability to tether or with a wrist strap to make carrying easier. Overall, I can recommend these. I found them to be useful, and maybe, just maybe, they'll help me be a slightly better gardener. If you found this video interesting or useful, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, join the subscription team, and as always, thank you ever so much for watching.